We are Just Shoot It. It's about kind of gun technique, rifles.
Just to establish 70% of the people here don't know the show.
Yeah, no, it's about filmmaking. The premise is about how you shouldn't wait for someone to give you a filmmaking job. You should just go shoot stuff and force people to believe that you're a filmmaker. And what better guests to bring than another podcaster? He has an amazing podcast called Respect the Process.
Round of applause for Jordan Brady, everybody.
Thank you.
2,800 SAG commercials, right? Is that the count?
I know you're exaggerating for comedic effect, but I'm at about 1,358 commercials.
Is that spots in a campaign or?
It's spots. So I'm shooting next week, Toyota campaign.
Sure.
One campaign, 8 commercials.
So that counts as 8.
That counts as 8 commercials. I mean, it's 8 different.
But wait, what if it's a 30 and then there's a 15-second cut?
I don't count that.
Okay.
That's pussy shit, man. I'm not going to count Can we cuss at the Lee Strasbourg? I mean, it's a stage. I saw Equus. I saw Spring Awakening. I know the language here in the theater.
As long as you believe what you're saying, you can say anything. So Jordan, can you tell us a little bit about how you got to commercial directing?
Sure. I always loved commercials. I grew up loving the Jolly Green Giant and see, we got some fans. Mr. Whipple and squeezing the, packaged goods commercials, especially jingles. I had hosted this MTV show, and NBC said, "Do you want to host this kid show?" So I go to the meeting just to host, but I had been shooting stuff, Just Shoot It, like Biker Week in Daytona, Florida, and I did a bungee jump, and I would shoot them and cut them with VCRs back and forth before the whole non-linear computer editing, and I'm self-taught, right? So as I'm traveling around the country and everything, I'm shooting shit. So I leave the meeting from NBC, I go home and I go, you know what? Who's going to call me a director until I call myself a director? I go back to the meeting. They go, what are you doing here? I go, watch this tape. And I showed them this terrible reel of these little pieces I'd done at Bike Week and on a farm and shit like that. And I said, I want to direct, like the most cliche thing you could say in Hollywood. And the producer, he goes, I don't need directors. I need producers.
That is true.
I need field producers, segment producers. So if you produce 6 segments, you can direct 1. And by the end of the season, I directed about 8 segments and produced all of those. And I was still hosting ones that other people produced. I was young and pretty. It wasn't like I look now. And I was still in other ones that people produced and direct. So I got to learn from these talented directors that would always tell me what I was doing wrong. And that's how I got into official directing. And from that, the network lady said, what do you want to do for the ad campaign? And that's how I got into commercials.
So you were kind of making a living as a filmmaker for many years.
As a game show host and kids host, I made a living. But then I made some features and they were critical flops. They just bombed horribly. And I got hired and I got paid and I was doing commercials that way. Like in between, I got signed by a company. They saw my movie. And the one thing I always tell filmmakers that want to do commercials, don't tell the production people that make commercials that you just want to do a handful a year while you're making your movie. They will hang up the phone on you.
Yeah.
Because they want to invest in you. They want to make money off you like a racehorse.
All of us are sort of, still doing films and all of that other stuff on the side. But I guess that's not strictly true. You two are pretty darn committed to commercials as your main vocation at this point, right? Would you say that that's true for you?
Absolutely.
I think in terms of income, which is, it's funny, our podcast, we've been doing it for 8 years, I think, or almost 10 years. I think Jordan's been doing his for much longer than that. And our podcast started out about narrative film, about TV, about how you pitch your project to this studio and this network. And it's turned over the years as we've had kids and, set up lives, gotten married and set up lives in LA. It's turned out into how can you make filmmaking a sustainable career? Because if you're doing a feature, even if you did a studio feature, let's say you got paid $500,000 to direct your first studio feature, a small studio feature, but it took you like 6 years to get that feature, and you have to pay your lawyer, and you have to pay your agent, you have to pay your manager, and you finally paid off your car, and at the end of the day,
about 2 years of honest to goodness work to make that movie at the first place.
Yeah. Right? By the end of the day, you've done the studio feature and you're still like poor by LA standards,
And it's hard to get another feature going. It takes time to get another feature going. The shelf life or the gestation period of a commercial, it suits my ADHD quite nicely. And I am a whore. If the creative is good and the money is good, I would do an ad for vape pens aimed at toddlers. I would sell whiskey to orphans if the script was good and the money was right.
Yeah. Why our toddlers both vape whiskey now.
Thank you. Thank you.
But what's the timeline of a commercial from the time that that you know that a commercial needs to be made till the time that you get paid to direct that commercial? What's that timeline? We said a feature is probably like 2 to 3 years.
A features could be a couple of years. I did a film that sat on the shelf for a year and a half, which was like put me in director jail as far as feature, because a feature must suck if they're putting it on the shelf that long. And then when it came out, like all the fanfare was over and everything. A commercial, conversely, the one I shot in Texas, and I got the script. I was telling Oren 14 days ago, can you shoot? Let's shoot it next week. We shot 2 days, 3 scripts, each with a baby, each script in.
And this was for the vape product?
He called it back, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if you're keeping score, but that's the kind of comedy we get on Just Shoot It. That was my value. That was nice. We did it in English and in Spanish. 2 days. They said it couldn't be done. And I methodically, we whipped it out. It was edited all this week, approved, color corrected, mixed. And tonight I got a link to the final product and it will air on Tuesday. So probably less than a 3-week gestation period.
Right.
But that's not normal.
That's pretty fast. Yeah.
Conversely, I'm shooting this week for Toyota, the 8 spots. And I don't even count the social bullshit that we're doing on the side. That's not part of my overall number.
Okay.
It should be, though, because it would raise the number.
Yeah. It's 2 numbers.
That I've had the script since September. In fact, that job is prepped before Texas even happened. So you're hopefully to have a career in commercials as a director, you want to be prepping one while you're in post on the other, and you kind of leapfrog. And then some months it's just dry as shit, right? You're going, will I ever work again? The monkey brain is tapping on the outside of your head, imposter syndrome. It's like anything.
Yeah. But when you're in that flywheel.
When you're in the flywheel, it's great.
Yeah, it's as good as gets.
Yeah.
Have you, aside from, because this panel is supposed to be about kind of making a living as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
Do you have filmmaker friends that make a living as filmmakers not from commercials?
I have friends that a couple of them are industry moguls making movies, and they're rich beyond.
They're on the business side.
They're directors.
They're directors. And what kind of stuff do they direct? Like TV?
One friend did 4-Year-Old Virgin and
Judd Apatow?
Yeah. And so we were in the same class of comedians back at the Improv. And so
Judd Apatow, Mario Lopez, and Jordan Brady.
That's right.
There you go.
Well, certainly there are not plenty, but there are many people making a great living in filmmaking, right? But
Yeah.
But even Judd probably does better nowadays, like producing and working on.
Produces way more movies than he directs. But
you mean like, do I have friends that I have friends that direct television.
Right.
My wife is a director, Jeanette Godoy. You can follow her. Did a feature a couple years ago. Has done an episodic. That's a whole nother podcast.
yeah, to me, the question is not, are there directors out there making a living outside of commercials? For sure. It's just that is a relatively small number compared to all of the people who want to do, right?
Yeah.
And so, you kind of are forced to lean into whatever opportunities arise, right? Like sometimes you're a game show host, sometimes you're a director, right? It's hard to know which is which, or rather you seize the opportunity, I should say. And so, while you're trying to become Judd Apatow, what are the other things that you can do to subsidize your life? Basically is what it boils down to.
Let me throw a caveat. First of all, I wasn't trying to name drop, but I wanted to go to hyperbole for effect because it's the person I know that makes the most money as a director.
Yeah.
But also
The 1% of the 1%.
And don't compare yourself to what other people are doing. I mean, that's if the 3 of us were all bidding on the same Butterfinger commercial, it's
They're
not
Butterfingers.
It's Butterfinger singular.
Oh, okay. I'm bidding on something different.
If we were all Pringles, if we were all bidding on the
There's a
same
drop
Pringles commercial, it wouldn't. And this is a mindset thing, and it works for actors too. In my opinion, it's not healthy to go, I'm going to fucking win. I'm going to beat those guys. So yes, I want to win the job. But if Oren gets it, I'll be like, great job, Oren. If Matt gets it, I'll be like, Matt, this is wonderful. You got to be happy for the other people's wins, because entertainment, when we go out for jobs, if you do the homework and you really like, it's meant to be for you. I don't mean in a mystical sense, but like you did the work, there's an opportunity and you're the right fit at the right time, then you are the winner. If you're not, it wasn't meant to be happy for the people that win. That should have gotten spontaneous applause, because that's some positivity shit right there.
Well, it's funny.
Really good shit.
It's funny because I had this conversation with Jordan last week. I was bidding on a commercial, for me, what would have been a really big job that I was very excited about. And I was bidding against two like superstar directors. And I was lamenting to you that I'm like really kind of, I don't know, I forget if I was texting with you before or after I lost it.
It was before
I lost it, but I was like so nervous and like waiting to find out, did I get it? Did I not get it? I think it's kind of, if you're an actor, it's like the equivalent of like testing for like a pilot or something, like, that it's either you or like one or two other people that are going to get this life-changing experience, which Matt will say it's not life-changing, but
good.
You know how it is.
You're fine. You'll see them. You'll be like, oh, those are okay.
But I was texting with Jordan. I'm like, do you ever get stressed out about this? And then he said no. And then I think when I lost it, I said, I lost it to this one guy that's been, that's a superstar comedy director. And that means that guy got it and I lost it. And the third director also lost it. And you said to me, do you think that third director is sitting here being depressed, texting his friends about how sad he is that he lost this job? Or do you think he doesn't even care? And I said, yeah, you're right. He probably doesn't care. And so I'm trying to get into that mindset of, the right person won the job and I just need to move on. But I don't know, just as a counter example to someone that is doing this professionally, I still get so
stressed about
bummed out when I'm so close to getting a job.
But when you looked in the mirror,
I don't have mirrors.
Okay. If you were to look in a reflective pool, would you say,
of my tears, yes.
Oren, I did my best? Because if you didn't do your best and you just kind of phoned it in, then you should feel shitty. But if you did your best and you were not right, like that A-list director who started way before I did, right?
Yeah, he's been around.
You could carbon date some of his. He is like top of his game. And I bet you someone at the agency wanted to work with that director before any of us got on the phone.
Yeah. So yes. So if I look in the mirror, I do feel like I did my best. And so I guess you're saying as long as you do your best, then that's all you can do.
It's like an actor. If you do the homework and you give the great audition and you don't get the part, there's a list of reasons why it wasn't meant to be. But if you do get the part, it's all about you, baby. And we've been in the room where it's like, oh my God, she was I don't know how we could do the commercial without her.
Yeah.
Once you get the part, everyone is so in love.
Well, and this is something I tell students all the time. I've been in situations where I'm like, oh, this is the one, the best actor by far, so perfect. The best, the lead reco.
And then they're not that good.
Oh, sure. Sometimes that happens. Sorry, guys. The flip side also where I, for whatever reason, don't end up casting them. They're unavailable or more, I get overruled by a creative director or a client or something else.
He looks like the client's ex-husband. We can never show that headshot to the client. True story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you guys ever tell those actors, contact those actors and tell them, hey, I wanted to cast you. You were so close to getting this role.
We disagree so much on this.
You're a part of the problem.
Yeah.
That's not, that no one does that.
Hey, you actors in the crowd, would you
win?
Would you be happy if a director contacted you and said, I loved your performance. You almost got it. It was so close.
And you also didn't get it.
Right.
Because you look like a client's ex-husband.
Yeah. And then it turns out it is their ex-husband.
Yeah. As a point of clarification, actually, for people who maybe aren't as familiar with the commercial world, the way that it works is once there's a short list of directors, typically there's 3 people who are all bidding for the same job. So it's almost always 3. Sometimes it's a little bit more, sometimes less. But that there are 2 other people who are going to be in the mix. And inevitably, 2 of those people are going to lose out
Not get the job.
to not go to the job.
Though I do
kind
feel
of
like,
guarantee as a point.
Does the agency call you and go, Oren, we loved your treatment, but you didn't win?
Yes.
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 Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. They were blown away by my treatment.
Yeah. He literally called me about this like 2 days ago. And was like, oh yeah, well, they said they love the treatment, whatever that means, which is the literal equivalent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do think also sometimes they'll keep like a second director as backup because they're still negotiating budget and things.
Yeah.
You know, so
lock in.
yeah. So if you don't hear for a while,
Everyone likes to be the backup plan, right?
yeah, I love being a backup. I was my wife's backup.
I actually have a question. So we're talking about rejection in the commercial world, and I like to kind of lean on my personal projects when I'm doing that sort of thing. Do you either of you have like coping mechanisms for when you don't get the job?
Well, Jordan doesn't care.
Jordan doesn't care, right?
I don't care, but I do bury myself in personal projects, and I have ongoing personal projects. And I also run commercial directing film school, which you can learn more at commercialdirectingfilmschool.com. So I'm usually doing a consultation, or like I have a boot camp one day, December 14th. You can learn more at commercialdirectingfilmschool.com.
And I think we have some alumni in the
I have
audience.
some alumni in the audience.
So if you want to learn more about it afterwards, you can ask.
So that's a personal project to keep me sane in between. And I produced a documentary, I shoot documentaries. And because my wife is a director, my son is a director DP, and my other son works on the podcast with me, I'm always busy because I think it's for all of us, if you have that passion project, it's your go-to, it's your blanket, it's your pacifier.
Yeah. As a filmmaker, for both of you guys, what's the difference really? What surprised you that was different about directing commercials versus directing narrative stuff, features or episode, like kind of, more traditional filmmaking?
Well, so my first feature film, I raised the money, right? I actually sold the script and bought it back when it went to turnaround. It was a crazy idea. And I started pitching these.
Would you recommend doing that?
I would not. It was a lot of money. It was a substantial portion of the budget to pay for the script. But this is in the late 90s, right? So we're going way back again. And I'm pitching people, these production companies, do you want to invest in my indie film? Because a lot of commercial companies, production companies wanted to get into the indie film game, right?
Back when it was profitable.
Yeah, like the sexualized videotape era, Quentin Tarantino bursting onto the scene, Soderbergh whole thing. And these people said, no, but based on the footage you shot and showed us, you should direct this commercial. You want to pitch on this commercial. And they didn't tell me jack shit about what to do. They said, come back Thursday and we're going to do a conference call. There was no Zoom or anything. So you're sitting around a speakerphone. They're like, tell them how you want to do the commercial. And I don't know. So I just tell them the story. Like that's the pitch. There were no treatments or anything. And I get on set and I just kind of went rogue and shot the commercial. And it wasn't until like the third, then I started doing more, when it was like the third one when someone goes, you have to talk to the ad agency. They hired you. So it wasn't like a film, let alone an indie film, where you just go off and make it. And that was the biggest awakening, that you should have check-ins and in prep you should run things by them. And in a commercial, the ad agency and client sign off on the storyboards or even the shot list before you go to set, because sometimes they sweat over each frame and what marketing ideas communicated in the close-up of the fantastic bottle.
Right. And is it how large is it in frame? How frequently is it? All that stuff.
She shouldn't hold the bounty paper towel like that.
Right. Exactly.
So that stuff.
He's not very.
Actually, very serious.
Very literal on that. Yeah, I think there's the spectrum if you start from like things where you're making stuff your own, right, all the way through to commercials. People do an indie movie. Maybe there's some investors, stakeholders who maybe probably want to make their money back. Into studio films where all of a sudden there's a lot of stakeholders, studio execs, you're not the final decision maker anymore. All the way up into like broadcast commercials where it's like, oh, most of these decisions are recommendations, right? Rather than like full on, you don't have the authority to totally dial it in.
I was thinking about that on the way here. When I am hired by someone new, I'm certainly running everything by them. Like, this is how we're going to do it. This is my point of view. And you're hired for your point of view, right? You're hired for the voice that you have even though the boards are kind of general, they're not prescriptive unless it's like a pharmaceutical, no pun intended, or pharmaceutical commercials. Lawyers have vetted every drawing. It's crazy. But it's come full circle for me because the people that trust me to do a campaign again and again, like repeat agency business, they don't care. They're like, just do your thing. And those are the dream jobs. And then
It's a lot of trust involved.
a lot of trust. But then a new client and a new agency where I have children older than the agency creatives, they're like worried and they want to know. And God bless them for knowing. So I tell them. A guy asked me last week in text, he goes, wow, this went really smoothly. And I said, that's because you trusted me and I was pretty much transparent with my hidden agenda. Because we all have hidden agendas to get the director's cut of the commercial, right? We all do director's cuts. And that's what people see on our websites and hire us for.
Yeah. JordanBrady.com.
You can go to jordanbrady.com. You can go to truegent.tv is my production company. But yeah, jordanbrady.com works.
As a point of clarification, again, oftentimes the agency will re-edit the commercial. We'll turn in our cut, basically. We'll say, hey, this is perfect. You shouldn't change a thing. And then everything gets changed. And you say, dang, that's not how I wanted it to go. But we have, like you mentioned, our hidden agenda. Maybe we have our own edit, or the editor slips us some raw footage, etc. And the thing that you're seeing on our website, the thing that's helping us earn more work, isn't necessarily the same as the client cut. So to speak.
Yeah, the client agency will hire the editor often separate of us. In North America, that's how it works. In Europe, they give the director a month and she can compose a score with an orchestra and a composer and do a color and the whole thing. In North America, sometimes they'll hire the agency and client will hire the editor separate from us. And before, like, we'll be on a call pitching the job and they've already hired, Sally's going to cut it.
Yeah. In commercials, we're hired. I think in traditional filmmaking, you as the filmmaker are involved in the script, the pre-production, the production, and the post-production, and sometimes the distribution, if it's an indie film or something. In commercials, you only do the pre-production and production for as a given. Sometimes you get to, dabble in post-production. Sometimes you get to mess with the script a little, but really we're the production department. We're taking the script, turning it into shots, and then giving them the footage. Right.
But when you say it like that, it hurts my feelings because they do want a point of view. And I think if they want an Uber driver for a director, they don't care if they get Sven, Jordan, Matt, or Oren, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if they want someone to put a little pizzazz on it, I think then they go after Baby Driver, referencing the Edgar Wright movie.
Yeah.
They want a specialist. And I think I just tell myself that so I feel more important.
Yeah, no, I don't, obviously that's the case. Like you're trying to give your point of view, but at the end of the day, like
I do genetically modified baby formula commercial,
right?
Right. If that's what it was, it depends on the money, depends on the people involved, and depends on, is it good for the reel?
Yeah. And that's why I think like if what you love about filmmaking is figuring out the script, figuring out the dialogue, then being on set with an actor, finding a performance, messing around with the dialogue till it seems just perfect, doing 20 takes, and then feeling that you really got it, you're in the moment and you want to move on, then that's like the opposite of commercial film.
Oh, that's funny. I thought you were describing commercials, actually. Maybe
I was until he said 20 takes.
Oren, how many takes do you do?
I do a lot of takes, but usually it's not, but it's not about changing the dialogue. Like, as commercial directors, we can't just say like, oh, you know what, say this instead, or just say this instead, or, ooh, that was perfect. Let's move on.
Actually.
Yeah. You call it. Yeah.
Well, I have improvs written on my phone. Wink, wink. And
Yeah.
whisper them to the actor. Like you can do anything you want directing the commercial and working with the actors.
Right.
You just have to deliver the scripted line as well.
But you're not the decider of what dialogue is going to be in the final cut.
That's why we leave with a little hard drive in our back pocket and we cut a different version for our website. Go to jordanbrady.com and you'll see the director's cut for the Pringles spell.
I do think, though, to your point, Oren, there's an element of customer service that we're dealing with.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And that's true for actors as well, I think, right? Like,
oh, yeah. I mean, for actors, it's even worse. I remember I worked with this actor on this web series years ago, and he ended up booking this like recurring role on some Disney ABC family show at the time. And he went and he shot his episode, and he came back and he was like, Oren, that was so crazy. Like if the dolly move is right and the focus is sharp, they move on. It's like, so as an actor, I have to like nail it on the first take. It's not like here where we're just doing multiple takes and trying out different things. It's like they got this schedule, and if all the technical stuff is right, we move on. And yeah, so I think there is that kind of element.
But I just want to be clear for any aspiring commercial directors. There is a service that you're providing, and I think the more transparent you can be in prep, the better. But I think the filmmaker who just services the commercial, she's going to have, or he is going to have a short-lived career, because the attitude of the agency people that hire us is, we want you to elevate it. Just like we want actors to not just say the line. Even if it's the line, you're adding that little je ne sais quoi, that little spin to it that makes it special. So they're looking for us to elevate it in some way. And that's how you can sustain a career, as you're the filmmaker who adds a little magic dust to the script.
Well, and I think that that's true for television and studio features as well. Right?
I'm staying on topic for the podcast.
Sure. But I guess what I'm saying is like, if the idea is that this is a way for us to subsidize other projects, right? It is good training, especially TV, where directors are really, again, more in the production department. Like an EP takes over the edit at a certain point as well.
And it depends on the show, obviously. Sure. If you're doing Black Mirror, you're probably getting a little more.
There's more auteur-driven.
Yeah.
You've got number one on the call sheet. Yeah. On a television episode.
You mean that the lead actor?
The lead actor on the show, that actor is going to like have no, I didn't want to do that. Sure. I've heard horror stories.
Yeah, well, I think on that note, kind of my next question was going to be about, let's say you get this, as a commercial director, you get a storyboard. Here's every shot. We want you to shoot this shot, this shot, this shot. Here's the dialogue. Here's exactly, we already tested in Animatic, where they'll take the storyboards, they'll edit them in a 30-second commercial. They'll show it to a focus group, and they'll be like, they love this part. They don't like this part. Now you go direct it. Like they're basically telling you exactly what to do.
I don't think those boards, it's usually one picture or just words and description.
Oh, I guess there's like it kind of runs the gamut, but I get a lot of those. So my question is, when you are given all this stuff to film, how do you inject your own voice in it? How do you make this a Jordan Brady commercial or a Matt Enlow commercial?
I mean, I think there is it's reliable that everyone else has dealt with the material for much longer than you had. Mm-hmm. And so they're jaded by it, right? They're tired of it at a certain point. And so if you assume that that's the case, then your new ideas can breathe new life into the project, right? So like pitching something, to Jordan, your point earlier, they're asking for you to elevate it. That's partially because they're just fatigued by everything, right? Like if you worked a scene a bunch of times and all of a sudden you get a new scene partner, or, you've written a draft, an X number of drafts of your short film, and then all of a sudden actors read it out loud for the first time, that's invigorating. And so that's kind of what the job of the director is in most cases.
I try to pitch a visual bit or two, and then alt dialogue jokes that fit the tone of the spot already is how I try to piss on it. And I also believe that there's a diminished return after 7 alts. It's not funny anymore. You're just making shit up to say. But I mean, I have gotten the boards where it's like 6 frames and it's all timed out. And I'll go, is this what you want? And they'll say, we want it exactly like that. I don't tend to book those jobs. I like the one where it's a column of video description, a column of audio, and it's 1 page. And when it's 2 pages, I have to get on the phone and inject them with truth serum and myself with truth serum and go, okay, it's 2 pages. This is not a 30-second commercial. And you want your logo of the Swiffer at the end for 4 seconds. We have 26 seconds to tell the story. Shit's got to get cut. Right. But the thing in Texas, I said it was the people from that worked at the grocery store came home with the flu and the colds and the whatnot.
My nose is so stuffy.
Yeah, and they're coughing and hacking. And I said, I think it'd be funny if the butcher from the grocery store had a big rack of ribs on the kitchen counter. And he was just wrapping them like he's working in the grocery store. Funnier than this audience thinks that visual is. But I thought it was really funny. They love that idea. And then we're on with the client and they were like, I don't know if we want to show raw ribs and is it going to get wasted? I said, no, we'll smoke it after the shoot. There's nothing's going to get wasted. We're going to eat it. And they go, yeah, I'm a little, I don't know about that. And I just go, what if he's sneezing as he puts bologna on a scale? And that's what we ended up doing. The guy's like sneezing on bologna and it's a big stack of bologna.
Bologna,
Yeah,
that's funny.
It's funnier than ribs for sure.
And bologna's, it's funnier.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, that is a good kind of way to, for those of you that aren't really familiar with like commercials and how much flexibility as a filmmaker you have, that's a great example of something that us as directors can add. Like, I think it would be really funny if he comes in and says this line, but he's on a recumbent bike, that like makes, or he's
That's the master.
yeah, and like those little details.
But I think part of it is if you obviously want the job, but if you swing for the fence and you get it, you end up with a better spot, which is on your reel.
Right.
If you don't get the job and you look at your reflective pool of tears, which I love the visual. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
And you know what? I pitched that, like the classic story I tell is it was like a Swiffer kind of project set in a pet store. And it was a shopkeeper talking to camera about the product, cleaned up bird seed and dog hair and all this. And I said, what if, the guy that works for him that's running around the pet shop, what if it was a chimp? And so it was the same commercial, but it was a chimp. And there was silence on the phone. And an hour and a half later, they called back and said, you got the job. And I used Caesar the chimp, and Caesar swept the floor, and we trained Caesar to pet the dog.
As in from Planet of the Apes?
No. It was not that. It was a real Caesar.
Oh, sure.
And
Wait, what?
No, it's an ape named Caesar who's probably passed on at this point. This was a few years ago. And the AD, the first AD, who's really in charge of the set, was a lovely, fair-skinned, redheaded woman who declined the job. And I called her. I go, why did you turn down my job? And she goes, I heard you're working with Caesar. And I go, what's wrong with Caesar? And she goes, he likes me like a lot. He won't perform if I'm there.
Oh, interesting.
Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy. Yeah, it is crazy how there are certain celebrity animals, right? Like Caesar was probably the chimp that you saw on television for 5 or 10 years, probably, right? Yeah.
And that's funny. I want to bring it back to entering the commercial world real quick. That transition from narrative.
But do you get my point that if you swing for the fence, if you're acting and you're auditioning for something and just go for it, you'll have more fun. And if you don't get it, you're like, hey, I swung for the fence.
It's like an actor that just takes the script, does the lines, and like the way that they think they should be, like that they're supposed to be, right? They're supposed to be done. Is like, I usually will never cast that person because like I just want to see someone that is bringing an angle to this, and it doesn't have to be the right thing.
Do you feel that way about commercials too, though?
Yes, absolutely.
Jordan?
Well, I think it's kind of to what Jordan was saying, swinging for, like if you come in,
You want going for it. You want a grand slam every time.
Not from the actors?
Yeah.
I want the actor to take the chance.
Yeah.
I love the actor taking the chance.
Yeah.
I want actors that I feel like are really smart because they've like read the script, thought about it, and come in with like some point of view. Because I want to know, in the same way I hire like a cinematographer, or I hire a production designer, I want to say like, hey, here's the idea. It's like an action movie. It's like behind the scenes what shot is an action movie. Cinematographer, you tell me how you would do that. Production designer, you tell me how to do that. An actor, hey, you're playing the server that's being interrogated by the police. Like, don't just say what's on here. Like think about what that would feel like for real, and make some decision. Maybe you just got, arrested last week, or maybe your dad's a police officer.
Bring it to life. Internalize it, bring it to life. Make sure that you're in tune with what the role needs, right?
Yeah.
But I guess I don't want people to misinterpret this as like,
I'm not saying change the dialogue or anything. I'm just saying that I want to know that I'm hiring someone that's going to be doing more work than I need to do. A lot of actors, especially newer actors, will not do that. They'll be like, just tell me what to do, Like they're afraid to like suggest things.
You want a collaborator.
Yeah, I want everyone on the set to be collaborating with me, even if all they do is like pick up a bottle and say like fresh, or whatever.
Right, but there's a difference between like fresh and like you don't phone it in. Don't be like, oh yeah, fresh, right? Like that's the opposite of what we need, right? But not fresh.
Yeah. No, I don't. To me, being Yeah, it's not about yelling.
Sure. Or brash, overacting, I guess is what we're talking about.
Yeah, but even like in an example like that, let's say you're doing an audition for a commercial and the only line is fresh and you're picking something up, then maybe in your slate you can say something interesting. Like, hey, I actually just used this product yesterday or whatever, and it's awesome.
I want to throw this to Jordan.
I would recommend for actors, because we had a lot of actors here, right?
Yeah.
At the beginning.
And this is something we talk about in my class a lot, for sure.
Well,
yeah.
I recommend, if it's like comedy, I do comedy dialogue. Don't be super funny when you do your slate, and then that trumps your performance. Like, because you do something really funny, like if the little kid says his age, and then you go, and I'm not 10. Okay, we've all heard that. Or I'll shave. We've all heard that joke.
That's pretty good, though. Right? Would still work on me. We're saying if a 10-year-old is like, and I'm willing to shave.
Well, if a 10-year-old said that would be funny.
Oh, that's what I thought you were.
No, I meant like a woman will say like, and I'm willing to shave, and they're clean faced. So it still works.
I don't know. I know. We're different. Everyone's different, so there's no rule on. You might do what I suggest and not book anything.
I'm just
unless you're auditioning for me.
Let the material shine. Let your first take shine. And I always recommend, and I don't teach class, so no one's listening, do the line first. Do the scripted line first. And if the casting director doesn't say, do you want to do another one? Then say, can I do another one? It's your opportunity, and be ballsy and go, can I do one more? And then do what you planned and do it. Riff, change the line. I mean, so many times we've cast people that ad-lib something.
Yeah.
Even if we didn't use it in the commercial.
Yeah. I guess because my wife is an actor and I put her on tape a lot, there are a lot of times where we do the whole scene and I'm like, it's just like, there's nothing it's just boring, like, let's try it again where you are, this woman slept with your husband and you know about it, but she doesn't know, like just trying to find some angle, to spice it up. And if the writing is super good, sometimes you don't need to do that. The writing does it for you.
Subtext is great. I'll say, like on set, like flirt with the detergent.
Sure.
Yeah. They'll be like, you get a cleaning power.
So actually, I had to go to the hospital after doing that last time.
By the way, if you're listening at Apple Podcasts or Amazon or Spotify, this is a simulcast with the Just Shoot It podcast. I thought I'd just put that.
Thank you. I never got to ask the question I was going to ask, and I'm okay with it being the last one, but you can add one more afterwards if you want. But if you want to get into commercials, you're a filmmaker. What advice do you? How do you start? What's step one?
I would study advertising the way you studied filmmaking or acting. Okay. I wouldn't just shoot a bunch of shit and put a logo and a hip hop track to it because it's not a commercial. I would take your favorite commercial from YouTube and I would take my iPhone and some Lego people. Like, this is ground zero. I would take what's your favorite commercial, like some Old Spice commercial. It's funny. I would get the Lego people. I would shoot it with my iPhone. I would edit it in CapCut or whatever free software you have. I would not worry about the camera. I would just see if I could tell a story in 30 seconds, increasingly 15 seconds. And I would do that a couple times and I wouldn't show anybody. And I would go, okay, I get it. I get the angles. I get the coverage. Then I would do it with puppets. Then I would work I'm joking. I would work my way up to people and I would shoot it on my iPhone and I would use the script from a commercial that worked on YouTube that was popular. And from there, I would reach out to one of us and say, do I understand what's happening here? And then you would get a script and shoot a spec commercial the right way with a crew and invest money in your career.
What do you guys think of the Doritos Break the Super Bowl challenge? You know that?
I hate it.
You ate it?
Ooh, I hate it.
Oh, hate it.
I hate it because I love Doritos. And a lot of people make funny commercials on those contests.
Do you guys know what we're talking about? Yeah, great. Okay.
They make some funny stuff. And Kevin Wilson, a film school alum, won the Super Bowl with a baby in a slingshot from years ago.
It's great to see.
He was a millionaire, he said, for like 24 hours. Because he had pooled the money from his church or something, and they split it.
Awesome.
But it's exploitive of our talents, and the reason I don't like it is it has a stench of a contest. So it's not going to be on your reel for long.
Oh, you mean the final product?
It's the final product. It's like, oh, that was a contest. There's no agency.
Even if you had a real Doritos commercial, it sort of diminishes that value too, right?
If you had a real one, unless you had, you have Michael Cera or, whoever's in the Doritos commercial.
Yeah.
Do you like them?
I share a similar attitude about it, but I do like, for a certain aspect, like your Tongles or your Gennaros or your Flares even, which are all like commercial marketplaces where crowdsourced. Yeah, exactly. And the reason that I like them is that you can start off with some real support, right? Like maybe you have access to a music library, you have the fine print, you have the logo, all of the ingredients that you need to make a commercial. You can shoot that on spec. You probably won't win anything, but the main thing that I think that those training grounds teach you is how long 15 seconds is and how long 30 seconds is, which is honestly the hardest lesson to learn with commercials. And maybe honestly, in a certain sense, the biggest difference between that and the rest of your filmmaking career.
6-second commercials, 6-second campaigns. But it's like set up, punch, 3 shots, 4 shots.
Yeah. But the other amazing thing about like a Tongle or whatever is you see, right, you get a concept, or sometimes you're pitching the concept, right, and a product to make a commercial for. You do it, you don't win, but you see the winning one.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, I could have made this decision better, or I took too long to get to the product. Or, I think in the same way that reshooting a commercial on your iPhone teaches you a lot, I think these contests can, if you're just on, if all you've done is made short films or something, I think it can really help you start to get into the right mindset and practice making commercials without having to pay for film school.
Two quick things. One, I would subscribe to free advertising magazines. Like Ads of the World sends out advertising from around the world, and it's like the top 5 directors, the top 5 editors, the top 5, and they're from Scandinavian countries, they're from Asia, they're from the US, and you just start to study like what makes it work. And a lot of times we as commercial directors are judged by the material we choose to show the world. We curate our own stuff. So just because you did a half-assed lottery commercial doesn't mean you got to show everybody, because the idea is subpar. And I believe I think we've talked about this. You can't raise a letter grade.
You cannot.
A B- script is never an A+. You can make it a A-, maybe A+.
Maybe.
And the other thing, Little Black Book is a magazine that I like because there's no paywall and they show commercials. And then specbank.com, not Spankbank, it's a totally different website. They have scripts from creatives at agencies like copywriters and art directors that didn't sell, but they're often great scripts, and you can get a real script. Because that's the hard part for a new filmmaker is, how do you get the script that we're judged by?
Yeah. Something I do see a lot of filmmakers trying to break into commercials do, which I have not seen done very effectively, is they'll take shorts or they'll take features, they'll take things they've shot and try to cut that footage into a commercial of some sort and put like a logo at the end.
Brian Petchers, commercial directing bootcamp alum.
Yeah. He did that.
I recommended he did that with this. It was like a spoken word piece that was like 3 minutes. And it was somewhat like a drone going through a field. And I said, if you take the first minute and when the camera goes up in the sky, put a Levi's logo, it'll be a spot. And he went to Cannes, shortlisted as best new director with that spot.
Wow. Really? And he'd already shot it.
And then another young filmmaker, beginning of this year, had a really funny short. And I wish I could remember his name. This woman picks up a guy at a bar. They go back to her place. In the morning, she's pregnant. He goes and gets coffee, comes back, the baby's born. They make toast, it's a toddler. Like it keeps progressing. It's like 6 minutes long and there's dialogue. And I said, if you just cut it, chop, chop, and put a Trojan logo on the end and come up with some funny line that I can't think of, it's like, what's the ironic twist,
And did he do it?
And he did it. He did not go to Cannes. He did it, but you can repurpose. But I think Oren's right that you really often can't, because your indie short, the look doesn't have the panache of the cinematography.
It's different DNA.
I find
It's different DNA. Yeah, that's a good point.
Levi's, it really depends on the brand, but I find that with most commercials, we know, especially nowadays, anything contemporary, we know what the commercial is for pretty early on in the commercial. And those like 30-second recut short with a logo at the end just doesn't feel like a contemporary commercial you would see on TV.
Right, because the structure of the script
Correct. Yeah.
isn't an ad.
I want to do some Q&A.
Q&A time. For actors, would you guys recommend doing commercials just to keep working on something other than paying bills? Or does that distract from, I feel like the more serious actors are not doing commercials and working on either creating their own content or more on the, I want lack of a better word, on the serious side of acting.
Yeah, you're
Does
saying
that make sense?
basically separate from finances, is it worth your time to focus on commercials if you have kind of other auspices, right? If you want to feel like a proper actor, capital A actor.
Right. It's almost like, athletes, the serious athletes that are actually like winning championships are doing, their work and
They shouldn't go
practice. They're not doing.
But they are doing.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's 100% true though, right? Like,
Right.
that's for real. Yeah, I mean, I think I talk about this in my class all the time. The ghost of Lee Strasbourg is going to hex me, but we're here to help you sell out. If you are fortunate enough to not need money, and some of you that may be the case, go with God. Just focus on your art for sure. Most of us need money, right? And acting is a tough gig, right? So like, if you were also so busy, so motivated that you were constantly putting up theater, making your short films, auditioning nonstop, and you truly do not have time for commercials, also good on you, right?
Pick your battles.
Yeah.
But I would say in the last 15 years, with The Office and the Parks and Rec and shows that have followed in that vein, the rise of the writer-performer, like what power we all have now with the tools available to make stuff. So if that's your passion, kick the commercials to the curb. And the commercial money isn't the same as it used to be.
That's true too. Yeah.
But for me, I would say try it because you get paid, you're on set, you see how a film set works. Like I know directors that will PA so they can be on set to see how everything works. And the key position you want is the person that holds the umbrella for the lead actor. Because when the director comes up and talks to the actor, maybe on a movie it's better than a commercial, but the star and the director are talking and you're there holding an umbrella. You get to hear everything. Yeah.
So PA on like a rain shoot.
Yeah. Well, no, or a sunny shoots. Sure.
Or a sunny.
Sunny
You don't want to get stuck. Exterior.
Lock up though, I guess.
It's like the butler. No,
I mean, I think it's an unequivocal, absolutely. Audition, there's like no drawbacks. Auditioning is good practice. Being on set is good practice. Callbacks are good practice. Responding, like if your agent sends you an audition, like responding to them is good for your relationship with your agent. So
an actor acts, a writer writes.
The only drawback is if you are, at your cousin's wedding in, Missouri, and they're like, hey, call back tomorrow in LA. Do you pay for the flight to come back and compete against 20 other actors? Like I just did a shoot last week and one of our actors, like we did in-person callbacks and he flew down from Napa, and he was one of my actors that was like not really right for it, but I thought he had some potential. There was something kind of cool about him and interesting. And he was on this TV show that I really liked. And he flew down. He's like, yeah, I came here from Napa. And literally the second he walked in the room, we have like a chat, the client and the agency. And it's probably not a great thing to say in front of a bunch of actors. But one of the clients texted like, this guy is totally wrong before he even did an audition. And I was so mad at him. I mean, the actor didn't hear. I was like, let's just give him a chance. And we did. And he had a decent audition, but we had way better options. And I felt so bad. This guy and he has kids at home. He just like left his family, flew down to LA, did it.
It's a bad life choice on that actor's part.
Yeah.
But if he would have gotten it, it was SAG. He would have made like $40,000 to $50,000. So I think on that off chance, 1 out of 10 chance that you make $50,000 for 2 days of work, not bad.
Yeah. I think also, Oren, your point of just like, exercising all of those different muscles is a totally valid. And I know all three of us well enough to know that we would all have rolled the dice on that and like have canceled trips, gone home early for things. That is the filmmaking life. So
yeah. And the hack to it, right? For getting a callback or an audition or a job.
Yeah. Book a vacation.
Yeah.
I was on vacation last December after the year ended better than it started. And I told my lovely wife, I'm not going to take any phone calls. I'm done for the year. We're on this island. We're at the beach. And then like an hour later, my phone rang and it was this production company. I go, it's probably a job. And I took the call and we shot it.
Yeah, that's how you pay for those trips.
The worst is when you're on vacation, you spend the whole trip writing a treatment, and then you don't get the job.
That's the worst. The final point I'll make about this question, though, is that especially young actors who are emerging, oftentimes a commercial set is going to be the biggest set that you have been on by a pretty significant factor for a long while. Unless you're lucky enough to book a television show early on or something like that, a commercial set is going to be the biggest, realest opportunity. So to Jordan's point of like just observing, like seeing the machine, like how many student films have, a team of ADs? Not that many, right? So like it's good exposure no matter what, basically. And also I was being a little facetious. Most actors are not going to be too busy to audition for commercial. I truly hope you're so motivated. That's a problem, but like,
yeah.
I think we have another question. I think I have another question.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about storytelling in commercial directing, because especially around the Super Bowl, I feel like, they have the whole, like, what's the best Super Bowl commercial? But oftentimes you're like, oh, the one with Britney Spears doing the blah, blah, blah. But then you never remember the product. And so the question I wanted to ask you guys is the ability of storytelling versus product placement, the fact that you need to know it's Doritos or Toyota in that sort of thing versus like, oh, they've got Christopher Walken, but I have no idea what the commercial is. How do you guys
know the Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, J-Lo campaign?
The crappy Dunkin' Donuts one, yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of campaigns, people know the brand. But because I used to think that, to me, it's like beers. Like, was that Bud Light or Coors Light?
Right, you got the clients.
It was Bud Light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Baby Puppy Monkey was one years ago, and I couldn't tell you what that was for. It was like Dr. Pepper or something. But if I could double click on your question, sir, the Super Bowl is its own thing because it's a Super Bowl of commercials and it's star-studded and they're usually a minute or 2 minutes. And I love the Ben Affleck Dunkin' Donuts thing. It was like it was a super campaign with all kinds of content and dollars behind it. If we're rank and file commercials talking about that, I think story is key for you to remember the product. I mean, even on a paper towel commercial, the family, like I always see the one where the family spills and they go, no, it's in slow motion. Did you do that spot?
I wish. There's
100 of them.
It's about to hit the cake, and then the cake has a photo and it stop motion animates of the existing. Yeah.
But I always remember that because there's somewhat of a story there. And the big, it's no secret, but the big trick is, as much as I'm going to tell you, I sprinkle my magic dust and I have a point of view, yank, yank, yank. The hard work is done by the ad agency teams that sell the idea. Because if it ain't on the page, and I'm sure Lee said this in this very room, if it ain't on the stage, it ain't on the page. And it's the same with a 30-second commercial.
I think we have time probably for one more question. If anyone has
Are we
one.
getting the light?
And we'll hang out in the lobby afterwards too if you want to chat. Yeah. See you.
Hello, beautiful people. I just wanted to ask you one question about your brains, because how do you train your brain to generate those crazy ideas? You just wake up and just like, oh yes, I will take this monkey, or oh yeah, ribs are great. Like, how do you do that?
How do you come up with your fun ideas?
Yeah. Well, every morning I drink Magic Mind. It's a performance elixir, and if you use the code Brady20, you'll save up to 48% on a subscription.
They're going to start sponsoring the show as well.
Like I just said, the agencies come up with the core idea. So to me, they start the campfire, and then what we do is put logs on that fire. So my personal process is I print the script instead of looking at it on my phone, and I scribble and I draw and I think in real time. And I bet you guys are the same. I can kind of figure out the end of the commercial before I'm done reading the script, which is a bad sign because then it's predictable. So I try to think, okay, how can I mislead the viewer more so there's a surprise at the end? But I doodle all over that piece of paper. I take a walk, I come back, it's there. I'm like almost like a religion, print, scribble, and draw, walk.
I kind of make a list of words. Like, for instance, now I'm doing this Pringles campaign where these people are eating Pringles and watching a soccer game. So I'll just, and they're in a living room in Thailand. And so I'll just like write like Thailand, soccer, living room, watching TV, all these words. And I'll just like go on YouTube and just start watching things connected to those words. Like I'll watch soccer games. I'll watch people watching soccer games. I'll watch other commercials with soccer. I'll ask ChatGPT, what movies have people watching soccer in them? And I'll like try to find those scenes on YouTube. And I just like start filling my brain with ideas. And I'm like, oh, wouldn't it be funny? Like in Thailand, they blow this horn every time a team wins. Wouldn't it be funny if we can integrate that into this somehow? Like I'll just start collecting ideas, like an interesting wardrobe choice or an interesting, transition, or the shape of the ball and the way it's kicked is similar to the lid of a Pringles can. I'll just kind of just start thinking of the visuals. And
you write them down? Or you have a notebook?
I usually download videos and then I start pulling images. Like I kind of work backwards.
Is this once you've already been awarded the job, or a treatment phase?
For the pitch.
Yeah. To pitch on the job.
Yeah. I mean, also when you get to be one of the 3 directors that's pitching on a job, you'll have a meeting with the agency. And I ask them, what are you looking for in a director to make this better? Like when you guys are looking at your 3 different directors, how are you going to judge which one gets the job? Sometimes they'll say, we think it's too much to shoot in one day. The director that can convince us they can shoot it all in one day gets a job. Sometimes they'll say, we think this magical moment when Michael Bublé comes out with his bubbly soda is, we wrote that he like walks out of the fridge, but we don't know what that looks like. Like show us an idea. So that's how I come up with it. I kind of, consume media until I get ideas.
And then recruit.
You're a student of advertising.
Yeah. The other thing to keep in mind is that, the buckets for what sort of ideas we're looking for don't change very much, right? We know we're going to figure out great costumes. We know we need to figure out some great sight gags. We can, decode the script and say, okay, well, it'll be really funny if we put this thing here. They put a funny kettle on the stove or whatever, but what if it was a rack of ribs versus what if it was bologna? But you still have the character in the circumstance and the space. So you're just alting out the thing that makes it funny, or the detail basically, and seeing if you can plus that.
The details are fun. Yeah. I will confess, for the first time ever, I have done in my career at least 5, maybe 6 ships in a bottle gags where the actor is just playing with the bottle. Like there's no reference to it. The actor comes in holding the ship in the bottle and says, "What's for dinner?" And that makes me laugh, and that's enough. That's funny.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's a go-to.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. That is a perfect way to end, which is, I hate ending on good notes. So I'm going to just give one more approach I have to coming up with ideas, which is very similar to screenwriting and maybe even acting in some way, is kind of just, if I don't have an idea instantly, I'll try to do the bad version. And to me, the bad version is
the vomit draft.
The vomit draft. Yeah. I'll make a list: lighting, color palette, wardrobe, cinematography, camera moves, casting, locations, all the details that, there's a person that you hire to take care of them. And then I'll just start describing the commercial. And by maybe, wardrobe, it's like they're just wearing street clothes. They're just 3 podcasters sitting on the stage. But maybe by the time I get to location, I'm like, maybe instead of like a brick looking stage, they're performing for construction workers or something, like I'll just start kind of getting ideas as I'm doing the vomit draft that will then I'll propagate backwards. And usually I'll write a draft and totally change my idea. Like by the time we get to the end, you restart.
It's, I think you're describing different ways for people to get into, a flow state.
Yeah.
That idea, creative zone. Yeah.
So cool. Well,
I would love to give away an online commercial directing masterclass to anyone that wants to do it. Done. Okay. But you got to finish it. Yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry. So in today's time, I don't think commercials get a lot of time. You know what I mean? I mean, you got to get their attention within 5 seconds and then they just hit skip.
You got that skip button.
Yeah.
So there's that one thing that I want to understand, like from your perspective, what you think would work in today's time. I mean, because it would make sense if people could understand it. Like people could get interested in it and then interested in the story,
You say, how can we hook people?
Yeah, hook people
before that skip button.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have to say, I saw it change about 5 years ago when the skip was really like people trying to figure out how not to skip. And that's a great question, young man. The reveal of the joke was at the end of it was 20 seconds. And the client goes, but what if they skip? So we move the joke to the beginning. So I would recommend if you were going to do a commercial and at the end, like a kangaroo jumps out of a cake, I wowould start the commercial with the kangaroo jumping out of the cake and put the pen to the paper and do Oren's vomit draft and figure out how to make it work. Because no one's going to watch a party like click next.
Yeah.
Kangaroo.
I think what you're really describing is there's kind of two classes of advertising now, right? You've got basically your digital commercials, more or less, something where you know it's going to be on YouTube, where you're competing with, other people's attention, whether you're scrolling or whatever, like hooking people in the beginning is important. And then there's the other class, the Super Bowl commercials, right? Or you're just general
or even like Hulu and all the, you can't skip those commercials.
Yeah, you can't skip those commercials, but there's a difference between essentially live events where people are actively watching the spots because they can't wait for the game to come back on or the election results or whatever it is. There are a few that's why the Super Bowl is the Super Bowl commercials as well, right? And those broadcast spots can still have that great reveal at the end. That's why they're so kind of good in the first place. But,
it is the reasoning.
Kangaroo at the top.
And
Have to
sometimes
say the brand at the same time.
I have been on a pitch and said, where is this going to air? And if they go, it's online only, I'll suggest, do we want to maybe reconfigure the structure of the spot, because who's going to watch past the first 10 seconds? And sometimes, you hear click on the Zoom and we don't want to hear that won't work. And then sometimes people go, thanks for pointing that out. We're too close to it. Let's talk about it.
It's funny because that's not our job. And it's so infuriating. It's the same sort of thing.
Yeah.
Having to tell someone that their 2-page script is a page too long.
They should have a stopwatch.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I will say, if you notice, a lot of ads now have a bug, like the logo of the brand on the entire commercial, or a QR code the whole time, or they'll open with the logo animation instead of closing with it. And it's because of that. Yeah. But I don't know. To me, some of the best Instagram ads are the UGC ones. They look like someone just shot it on an iPhone. It's I saw one today where this woman was changing a chandelier, and her boyfriend or whatever was holding the ladder, and literally the opening shot, it just falls to the ground and breaks. That's the second one. And you're oh, what's going to happen next?
You're hooked.
Yeah. And so there's that. But I think our favorite types of commercials are not those things.
You know how many directors it takes to change a light bulb? One. They hold the bulb up and wait for the world to revolve around them.
Oh.
How many first-time directors does it take to change a light bulb?
I don't know.
What do you think?
Yeah.
I don't know what you think. That's funny.
Okay.
They used to be called dad jokes. They were just bad jokes.
My question was about branded entertainment and if you guys do any sort of integrated ads. So sort of to your question about how to grab their attention, are you guys ever brought into scripted content that already exists and asked to place anything? And do you feel like that's the future of ads with people skipping stuff?
I am working on a long form branded documentary right now, sponsored by Family Farms, and it's a meat subscription company.
I like meat.
Boy, I have so many. I didn't even notice I had 10 meat subscriptions. I looked at my credit card and
it's really, and they're family farmers, and it's so anti-advertising because the products are ingrained in the fact that we're doing a documentary on these farmers that have been ninth generation farmers. So to my friend about asking about the story is the whole thing. And what's great, to your point about this whole podcast episode was commercials between your other projects. I think I'm the opposite. I'm all-time commercials, and now I'm flexing a muscle doing a branded film, if you will.
Yeah. I did an hour-long video for Pinterest last year, but it had a very specific audience, which was people that use Pinterest to market. It was for marketers. But I kind of think there was an era of branded content. Matt and I were very involved in it.
It's where we started.
Kind of
juggernauts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Web series that were sponsored by brands, and Verizon Go 90. I don't know if you remember that. It was a whole network TV of shows
pre-Quibi,
paid for by Verizon. Yeah. Quibi was Amazon, right? Or
no, but I mean, Verizon Go was a pre-Quibi thing.
Right. But there were these various networks paid for by brands. Even Apple TV Plus, those shows are kind of an ad for Apple, right? I don't think they make a ton of money on this.
Yeah, well, they lose a lot. Yes, but so I think there was early excitement about it. Like, oh, we're going to do fun sketches or a web series based, surrounding this product. And we're going to drink vitamin water every single time. And there's a lot of work to service those and to make them good relative to all of the brand needs, right? Like Jordan made a point about like, oh, Bounty needs to make sure that the light hits the roll of paper towels just so. That really encumbers a
Cars
story. Yeah.
Cars, they have a book
Yeah.
of like 3 pages of shot after shot of what hero angles of particular vehicle looks like.
Yeah. How many times have you been told we can't shoot a car from this angle because it looks fat?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
all the
that's
time.
not a joke at
They
all.
want
Yeah.
cars to look long and sleek and tall. And
I did do a branded series for Ellen. That was where we had that exact situation where it was like, okay, this is the angle that you can shoot the Subaru, whatever we were giving away.
I think the best version of branded content is when Bounty says, hey, Jimmy Kimmel, we're going to sponsor your show.
Yeah.
Do a bit for us. And it's very,
Or SNL, I think,
do they do
a lot of
branded content?
branded. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
We had a
Anyone
Dunkin'
that-
Donuts commercial that was really good.
Anyone that wants to do commercials, go for it. Because it's a lot of fun. The money's pretty good. And the people are, we've complained and not complained, but talked about the rules of the advertising. But they're actually really smart, creative people. And they're not listening this far. So I'm not saying it gratuitously. Like,
Yeah, sure.
they listened to the first 5 minutes because I was on it. They said, well, we usually listen longer with them. But you have creatives that listen to your show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
But they're really nice people and they have a fun job and they sit around doing the vomit draft
100%.
to come up with the spot to begin with. So go for it. Reach out to any of us. We're all pretty accessible. I'll give you the course and shoot it with an iPhone. I shot a whole thing this summer with dolls that I got off Amazon. Like for $8, I got a package of dolls and I shot the whole commercial because it was a lot of people talking.
Oh, you did like the Filmatic. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just so I would know the screen direction, not so much like I don't know how to block a scene, but I didn't have time to run the entire scene through every setup. I wanted to go in with a scalpel. And that's fun to me. So when I tell you shoot commercial,
It is the great way to do it if you were shooting a TV show or a movie as well. Right? Like,
my wife did her
Yeah.
first episode of a show. We made cards of the actual actors and got a floor plan of the set and put it on the dining room table. She knew everything. She shot the commercial she shot the episode before she shot the episode and it turned out great.
I know we have to wrap up, but I want to just double down on how fun commercials are. And I think my favorite thing about commercials,
Wrap it up high. And it's
when you make short films, when you make features, when you make all your indie crap, you have to beg people to watch it. You have to get people to come to your dumb screening, drive across town. You have to get people
at a festival.
You have to get people to your annoying WeFunder, Kickstarter, or whatever. You have to do all this stuff. That's a pain. And you have to get people to watch your stuff. When you make commercials, we pay people to watch it. We spend money to get you to watch the commercials, and we don't even have to worry about the distribution. The most frustratingly difficult part of filmmaking is something that we completely don't worry about.
That is one of the main things. Like I told you earlier, my movie was on the shelf. With a commercial, there's a release date before they talk to us. So like my mom will go, your commercial's on. Like that must mean it's good. No, that means someone bought the media time before they called. But
if you want your work to be seen, get into commercials.
Yeah. Cool. And if you want to, pay back all of your friends who, made those indie movies with you, that's another way to do it as well.
have fun, try a new lens, try a new camera, meet fun people.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me on the show, guys.
Yes, thank you, Jordan. It's Brady. Disrespect surprise. Thank you, PK, Trevor, and Hillary, and everyone for hosting us. You can check out our podcast, Just Shoot It Pod, on anywhere you find podcasts. You can check out Jordan's podcast, Respect the Process. And we have our producer here, Tyler. Thanks, Tyler Small. You should check him out on Instagram, Tyler W. Small. Our editor, Kevin O. Yang, edited this episode. And thanks, everyone. We'll be in the lobby if you want to hang out.
Bye-bye then. Thank you all. Bye-bye.